Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bronwyn Starr, and I am with the New York State Health Foundation. I want to start off by saying that for the hearing impaired attendees or anyone else in need of live stream captioning, please click on the closed caption icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select show subtitles or full transcript for options. Thank you so much for joining us on this rainy afternoon for a discussion about a project we are very excited to be supporting in the Adirondack region of New York State. The project is turning an emergency food feeding program into a sustainable food security program with food sourced locally from the region. Even more unique to this program is that customers will be able to use their SNAP dollars online to pay for it. And although New York State was one of the first states to pilot the USDA's online SNAP program, access is still limited, especially in rural counties and rural areas of the state where participating large grocers such as Walmart or ShopRite are not easily accessible. Applying to become an online SNAP vendor is a cumbersome, expensive, and time-consuming process. ADK Action provided technical assistance to a nonprofit food hub in the North Country to apply to become an online SNAP vendor. When approved, the hub will be the first non-chain small food vendor in New York State to offer SNAP online to its customers. So today we have with us Brittany Christenson, the Executive Director of ADK Action, Victor Fimbres, founder, and Justin Intal, co-founder and CEO of Forage, which is an online platform to help small grocers process EBT for use in online SNAP purchases. So I'm going to ask Brittany to go ahead and set the stage, give us some background about your program, and then along with Victor and Justin, discuss some of the challenges that small vendors face when applying to become online SNAP vendors, and then moving forward, how we all here today can advocate to reduce these barriers to accessing SNAP online. Of course, we will leave time at the end for Q&A, so please get ready to type in your comments into the chat. And this is also being recorded, so the presentation and slides will be made available in the next few days. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Brittany.
Great, thank you so much, Bronwyn. Hi, everybody. As Bronwyn said, I'm Brittany Christenson. I'm the Executive Director of ADK Action, and I'm also, in a past life, I was a farmer myself. So the food systems and building community-based food systems is really important to me, really close to my heart. And I didn't think that I would be talking about SNAP online. If you would have asked me a year and a half ago, it was so far from what I was doing at ADK Action with our community-based projects. But I'm hoping that by showing you just a few slides, you'll see the evolution of how it became imminently clear that this is exactly what our region, the super vast 6 million acre Adirondack region, needs to be able to fill in the gaps in food access. Because we're not able to support traditional grocery stores. We've had 10 grocery stores close permanently here in the last 15 years. So there are some real challenges to food access. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Let's see here. So a little bit about ADK Action, for those of you who've never heard of us. We are a nonprofit that addresses issues in the Adirondack region, and we really focus in on unmet needs that lie at that nexus of vibrant communities and preserving the natural beauty of the Adirondacks for everybody. We have 8 active projects right now, and food security, composting, and protecting habitat for pollinators are 3 of our large food systems projects that we're engaged in. We started out this work of, helping to get food delivered to homes when the pandemic first became really problematic in New York State. So back in March of 2020, we were, sorry about that. Back in March of 2020, we were looking at our communities and seeing how everybody was going into lockdown very quickly and a lot of the folks that had in-home service or in-home care were not having those same folks come to their homes to be able to buy groceries for them, for instance, or to take them out grocery shopping. And so we got together with some of our partners, and we very quickly decided that we needed to do something to get food directly into the homes of some of our most vulnerable residents. So we launched a pandemic emergency food response program that served 4 very rural counties in northern New York. So you can see them highlighted here in red: Clinton, Essex, Franklin, and Hamilton counties. At the same time that supply chain issues were affecting grocery stores, and people that were immunocompromised or that had other comorbidities that made it very difficult for them to go out and shop were locked down in their homes, we had all these wonderful farms in our region that were facing a very uncertain summer. They weren't able to sell to their regular channels, wholesale especially. So all the restaurants were shut down, and a lot of their regular clients were just not operating the way that they were used to. So we immediately decided that what we wanted to do was to get the food from the local farms and make sure we could get it into the hands of people who needed it. So we launched an online fundraiser, and our original goal was to do we figured out it would cost $55 to put together a box of a week's worth of ingredients. We did the calculations to figure out the average caloric needs for one individual, and we put together a package of prepared meals that were frozen and fresh ingredients that required minimal preparation. It was all sourced from the local farms. And so we did this fundraiser, and we were trying to do 100 boxes a week for 10 weeks. And the way that the community responded was so fantastic, and there was so much support that we were able to raise 3 times our original goal. And then we started working with New York State Health Foundation, and they helped us continue the program for an additional 3 months and then transition it into something more long lasting. So it really worked well. We got the support we needed to be able to do this work. And part of the reason that this area is particularly challenging is that we're very sparsely populated and spread out over a huge geographic area. And so there's a lot of inefficiencies in delivery when you don't have a lot of stops. Just for example, here are some of the delivery routes that our partners at the Hub on the Hill travel to bring these boxes door to door. And you can see a couple photos here of one of our volunteers delivering food packages. We tried to filter folks that were qualified for the food packages by having comorbidities that made it difficult to shop, seniors, and families with young children. So you can see that reflected here in some of our recipients. And the impact was huge. We were able to serve over 1,000 individuals, and this was weekly, every week for 7 months total that the program ran. So it wasn't just a one-time, here's some food. Over 1,000 people received food every week for 7 months, representing almost 65,000 meals. And we purchased $125,000 worth of products from local farms. So as everyone across the country started to get more comfortable with COVID, we started to have more information about what was safe, what was unsafe, and supply chains started to, things started to be a little more reliable and predictable. Social services and some of the in-home healthcare aids and other programs that had shut down temporarily were all coming back online. So by end of September, early October last year, after surveying everyone that we were serving, we decided it was a good time to switch to a more sustainable model where folks would be able to buy the packages. During that survey that we did at the end of the free emergency food package phase, we learned a couple of key things. We learned that 60% of the folks that we were serving were already on SNAP. We learned that about 1/3 of them bought most of their groceries at a dollar store. And that's important because dollar stores don't tend to have fresh produce. And almost 40% did not have access to transportation. So this home delivery component was going to continue to be really, really important. So when we designed the transition from the pandemic response to the long-term program, we decided to take all those factors into consideration. And we worked with our local food hub to create a product called a Farm Fresh package that they would now sell in their online store. So we worked with them to create a new store on the Shopify platform. We did a lot of customizations and installed apps to make it work just the way that they needed, including apps for route optimization. And this is what we came up with. So this is the product, the Farm Fresh package that's now available for purchase online from the Hub on the Hill, and folks can have that delivered to their home. And we also launched a new program in tandem called Fair Food Pricing that provides a huge discount on the food products. So folks have the dignity of being able to purchase the food, but it's at a rate that's really, really affordable. So we're getting very high quality local food products into people's homes. Now, this is my last slide because that's the setup for where Snap Online comes on scene. So it sounds great in theory, right? We'll sell these packages online. People will go online, they'll purchase them, and we'll deliver them to their home. But the challenge is if people are paying with Snap, and as you saw, 60% of the folks we serve are paying with Snap, then they have to pay with Snap at the door in the way that, with what's currently available. So we've got these wireless card readers. And I'm actually going to go ahead and stop the screen share here, because that's my last slide. But we had to use these wireless card readers, and up here in the North Country, broadband is still not ubiquitous. So there's plenty of pockets with no service, no internet access. So you get to someone's door with this card reader. If there's no internet, you can't complete the Snap transaction. If they're not home, you can't complete the Snap transaction. If they don't have enough money on their card, you can't complete the transaction. So a lot of challenges. And you also layer that with the exposure and the time. So it takes, if you have to have that interaction at the door, it takes the delivery drivers much more time to complete each delivery. And so for all of those reasons, our partners at the Food Hub and all of our volunteers were becoming very frustrated with trying to be able to accept these Snap payments at the door. And that's when we realized that we really needed to figure out a way to get Snap online so that when folks went to check out, they could pay right there with their EBT card. It would alleviate all of those issues that I just mentioned. And so back in, I guess it was probably mid-October of last year, we started to look into the process to get the Hub accepted to be a Snap Online vendor. And what we discovered was that it was a process that was very complicated, shrouded in mystery, and felt like an impossible uphill battle for a small vendor. But we were so committed that we absolutely knew we had to find a solution. And so we began looking for a technology partner, because what was available at the time, and still is available, but that's changing, was there was a payment processor that ostensibly you could connect to somehow. So if you had some kind of developer that could write the code to be able to connect you with the payment processor, you might be able to accept those transactions. But it's a very, very high level of technical skill that I would say most, if not all, community-based food system businesses absolutely have no access to. So that's when ADK Action reached out to Justin and Victor at Forage, and we started the conversation about how they might be able to help us accept Snap Online at the Hub.
Thank you, Brittany. So Justin and Victor, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about Forage, what it came to be, what it does, and how you're helping Brittany and other small vendors around the country with their access to Snap Online?
Yeah. Again, thanks. Thanks for sharing, Brittany, and I want to just thank Brittany for working with us. We're pretty excited, and hopefully this is something that we can expand out to New York State as well. So a little bit about Forage and about me and Victor. So Victor and I have been thinking about this food ecosystem long before COVID. Funnily enough, we were both on EBT for about 2 years, leading into building this company when we realized that the largest problem is accepting payments online. With the acceleration of COVID and the acceleration of online grocery shopping, as Brittany mentioned, a lot of these large payment processors like Fiserv and AccuLink left the smaller grocers and smaller independent grocers behind. And you can see that today there's only roughly about 10, maybe no more than 15 grocers that accept EBT payments today. And that's still in 2021, right? So not only is it bad for the merchants to not be able to accept these payments before the roughly 42 million Americans, and obviously government as well, who have their own targets to get more merchants up and running. So in short, Forage helps merchants accept EBT payments online. We are a third-party payment processor. I won't go into detail of what that is, but we work across the board with merchants and platforms to accept those payments. An example is that we are the exclusive EBT partner of Shopify, and many small businesses and grocers live on Shopify today to accept those payments. What that actually does is that many merchants don't have to even think about building this technology all over again. They can actually just plug us in, like you would plug in a PayPal button, and start accepting those payments once we kind of get it, once you get approved from the USDA or FNS. And so for Forage, we joke about being, teammates and having a large, we only have a team of 8 right now, but it seems larger because we team up with ADK and Brittany, and we team up with FNS and the USDA to really build this robust strategy on how to scale this more effectively. We're building the timeline from how it took, Walmart or an Amazon roughly 2 or 3 years to start accepting EBT payments. And we want to bring that down all the way to 6 months and hopefully 2 to 3 months. And with ADK Action and Forage, and we do work with Hunger Free America as well with Joel Berg. We want to help redefine how this pilot program will be launching for every single merchant from small to large.
Thank you. So someone's asking, just to confirm, merchants still need to sign up and get approved independently from the USDA.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a couple of things that Brittany and Victor have done. So there's 3 components into getting approved, which is one is a letter of intent. So you send that letter of intent to the USDA or FNS with this template that Brittany created. So you guys there's very little work. And it says that you're going to be working with Forage. The second component is something called a business requirement doc that Victor authored. And that is a technical aspect of it. And so he's the expert on how to do that. He's probably written way too many for many merchants in America. And the third, he also created the implementation of how to get your product up and running. And we handhold you throughout the whole process.
Thank you. So Justin and Victor, so you've alluded to the fact that Brittany may be like the one and only in New York State working on this. I was wondering how vendors in other states are doing compared to New York State. Obviously, Online SNAP is a federal program, so I'm assuming that many of the other groups you might be working with have the same barriers. But are there any sort of best practices that are emerging to make the process easier? What are you guys seeing across the country?
Yeah, and to be honest, we've, even though Victor and I are both based in California, and California is the largest EBT SNAP recipient in terms of spend and consumers, we've been lucky to work with Brittany because she's been more proactive on this. And the way that I view and how we can all work together is if we can build a framework around New York State on how to scale SNAP collectively together, we can go and do that in another state, right? So we've been working with Susan Zimet, who is in the recent governor's administration, and along with Joel Berg, and how to build a scalable model. And so in terms of comparatively speaking to other states, I think California and then maybe Iowa would be the next 2 that are pretty moving pretty fast on this. But in terms of how we can help out, we are, Victor and I are joining the NGA. So Forage will be part of the National Grocers Association to kind of help scale out and really redo those best practices. We love to hear from the merchants and small businesses as well who are struggling and what's their biggest pain point, whether it be technological wise or just working with the USDA or not fully understanding that scope of work. My inbox is pretty straightforward, and would love to hear from you all on how we can help it easier to transact EBT online.
Okay, and then you did talk about working with the USDA. There has been, I think, talk of more federal funding to make this easier through the American Rescue Plan. Lots of money, I think, is being set aside for this, including technological improvements to expand online food process purchasing. So where do you guys have a sense of where that is in the pipeline? Are you seeing some of that support coming down the pike to actually be helping some of these smaller grocers that you're working with?
Yeah, so I believe that the American Rescue Act, I think there's gonna be about 20 or $25 million, from that. Currently, and this is still in the works, is that uh, the application or what exactly they're gonna be asking for will be released in the next few weeks based on what the NGA shared. I'm not too sure if it'll only be for nonprofits or for-profits as well. Just for clarity, Forage is a for-profit and so we're not a nonprofit. And so we've been thinking about working with the NGA on that component to really scale that out. That's kind of, I think FNS and the USC are still figuring out what exactly are their goals and targets with the 25 million, whether it be hiring more people at FNS to help them scale this, or think of new technology partners like a Forage or such to make it easier for themselves. And so that's only the full extent that I have. But Victor, Brittany, if you guys have any other learnings from it, feel free to share.
Going to give Victor the chance, but I guess I just wanted to add in the point that from the user's perspective, one of the reasons that we're really excited about working with Forage is that it's a very sleek and very modern solution that they're building. And we just think that's so important because what we saw about, what was available on the marketplace for working with some of the very large payment processors was that it was, clunky, it wasn't very user friendly, and it was going to be confusing, and there would be all kinds of gaps along the process where we might lose customers. And so this is such an integrated model. It really provides the same level of service to folks who are on SNAP to, as others that are paying with credit or debit card might have. And I just think that, from the perspective of dignity and respect for SNAP consumers, it really makes me happy that we're going to be able to create an experience where folks can go on in the comfort of their home, buy high quality food, pay with their SNAP cards without any hassle, and have it delivered. This is the way it should be. It's going to be 2022 in a couple of months. The future is now, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be having this as an option and an opportunity for people. And I think so many businesses have transitioned to online, and and businesses that you would never even think of. There are small restaurants all over rural America that are doing innovative pilot projects and delivering foods to people's homes. And and I think that this online technology is just really going to it's going to give rural America the opportunity to feed its people in a different way, because the carrying costs for brick and mortar retail are very high. And with a low population base, it's really, really hard to be able to do that. So I see this as one of the most promising technology solutions for rural food access, that's out there on the table. So.
Yeah, I want to add to Brittany because that was amazing. That a lot of the, even that's another problem that we have right now. But another problem is that government hasn't really put all these benefits online, right? So we're talking about all these, from EBT Cash to WIC to Double Up Food Bucks. Online grocery shopping is accelerating. It's expected to be about 30% of the whole grocery bill online in the US by 2025. And when all these benefits that many people rely on cannot be purchased online, that's going to be tough, right? It's going to hit a lot of people who need it the most, people who need delivery the most. And one thing that Victor and I always think about is, we don't want to be wasteful of government taxes and government dollar. And what that means is that we have to think about building technology that scales on that, right? So we don't have to rely on another grant, another legislation for something like Forage to be up and running, right? And that's where we're thinking about this in different layers than we're just solving EBT. We want to make sure that we're building technology both that can grow for the consumer, for the merchant, and for government.
Thank you. Lots of questions are already starting to pop up in the chat. So I just want to invite everyone, if you have questions, we will go ahead and get into those. I think Victor responded this already in the chat, but just so for those of you who aren't looking at that, someone asked a question, does the platform or the USDA allow for recurring payments? And the context of this is thinking about it for use with CSA programs.
Hi. Yeah, I can answer that question. So recurring payments is definitely on the roadmap. I think that is such a critical aspect of online grocery itself. It makes the economics of online grocery work. But I think right now there are some technical challenges and legal challenges to that we're actively solving right now. So, but we definitely expect to solve that in the next 6 months or so.
Thank you.
I just want to hop in on that because that's a huge need in our program. You know, the logistics of aggregating food from multiple farms and then putting together packages. If you don't have people ordering them on a regular basis, the finances just don't work out. So the reliability of a subscription model, I think, is going to be particularly important for community-based food systems using Snap Online.
Actually, to that point, this is great to hear that there's a lot of support for this. Reach out to the FNS and the USDA, right? They're receptive. Reach out and tell them, hey, we want this feature, we want this feature, because they don't know, right? They're not on the ground, they don't understand, but they really rely on the operators to inform how this goes. And so it's good to hear there's a lot of support. So yeah, vocalize that support, please.
So Victor, that was actually one of my questions sort of at the end, but we can get into it now, is how can we, people on this webinar, advocate for ease of this process. And I know, at our state level, you mentioned working with Susan Zimmett at the, from the governor's office. I know she's working on it, but what are the, some of the other things for all of you that we can be doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe, okay, so we put our emails on the chat. Let's talk. Let's kind of get something together and formalize a letter or something like that. Or because we have their contact, we can talk to them. But obviously the message will go further if it's attached to real people who are on the ground doing real things.
The other thing I would add is support for delivery fees. I think being able to spend a modest $3 to $5 on a delivery fee will really make the difference, because without that, people are going to have to be doing split payments, and which is fine. Forage's solution can definitely handle split payments, but I know that delivery fee is a real barrier for a lot of folks. So if we can have enabling legislation that allows Snap to cover that fee, that would be fantastic. And the other thing that I'd love to bring up is, a goal that we have at ADK Action is to work with Forage and potentially other partners to try to get double up food bucks online, because there's still an affordability challenge for folks. In my perspective, is all coming from the community-based food system. So it's more expensive. Local food is more expensive because the labor is more expensive, because the supply chains are shorter, and you don't have that buying power. But we, in all of our brick and mortar programming, we rely on double up food bucks and our fair food pricing model to get that cost down. So I think that this is the beginning of a long road, and there's multiple kind of add-ons, delivery fees being covered, double up being online as well, that will really make it a system that works well for Americans.
Right, thank you. And I think, yeah, someone else had mentioned, another big hurdle is finding a way to integrate the different programs into a singular payment system. So I think, Brittany, are you guys also talking about some unified card system that will allow your customers to use Double Up Food Box, which is a national program. We also have a program called Fresh Connect in New York State that we use. Can you speak a little about that?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So that's another area of innovation that we're really excited about. In addition to doing this work online through the Hub on the Hill, we also have programs set up at local farmers markets and at our brick and mortar partner locations. So folks are able to leverage multiple incentive programs to get the price down. And the challenge that everyone runs into is, it's very difficult to navigate using multiple programs at the same time. So there might be a $2 coupon for one program, and there might be tokens for another program and yet another token that's only slightly different for a third program. And you end up with, at best, you have wonderful volunteers and facilitators that can really describe how these things all come together and help people use them. But a lot of the labor at the farmers markets is volunteer labor. And so it's difficult to have the training, week after week to make sure people know how to be navigators for the SNAP recipients and others. So we're working with a company called Red Rose based in Ireland, and they have a multi-wallet card system that we think is really promising for simplifying the benefits navigation at the farmers market. But we don't want to have something that only works at the market. We'd love to build something that the same benefit dollars that they have on their card can also be used in the online context. So you can go from online to brick and mortar to market, all with the same system. We are at the very early stages of piloting that program right now, and we're just getting our own fair food pricing program up and running on the Red Rose cards. But it's our ultimate, long shot, our pipe dream for this program is that maybe we can work out a partnership with the folks at Field and Fork Network that run the Double Up Food Bucks program, and with others in our community to get multiple benefits on one card. And there's even more potential there because the technology allows for 21 different wallets. So we could also partner with housing programs and put the housing vouchers on that very same card. So we think that could really make lives easier for the people that we serve.
Thank you. Someone else asked, this is a big question. So if you have thought about advocating for New York State to create a consolidated statewide incentive program, like the one they have in Massachusetts, I think we've all thought about that a little bit, and maybe that's our moonshot, like you were talking about. I don't know, but have you? I assume that's maybe sort of the end goal, right? We got to maybe take some baby steps first. But do you have any response to that?
Absolutely. I think it's called HIP, the program in Massachusetts, Health Incentives Program. And my understanding of the way that system works is that the card is you use your SNAP card, and when you use it at farmers markets, you get I think $40, $60, or $80 a month charged back to your card. So you have those funds to use on other purchases. So yeah, fully integrated, really seamless experience for the users. And I think something like that would be fabulous in New York State. That would definitely be an end goal. I think what we're trying to do here is, pilot and show that success is possible, that these systems can be simplified, and that there can be a lot of efficiency and cost savings, I think, as well, if we do it right. So hopefully we will end up, having state level change on this at some point.
Great. Another question, which I don't know if this is, so Red Rose, getting back to Red Rose, does it have an algorithm that when allowing different payment systems, it'll deduct from the card that's the best use for the item? For example, when you're charging certain expensive item, maybe more expensive items to WIC versus SNAP.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So it actually, you have to select which wallet you're using. So you can have different constraints on each wallet based on the qualifying items. So it's not quite as sophisticated as being able to recognize, where the funds should be pulled from and optimized based on the funding source. But with just a little bit of training, it's easy to select the right wallet for checkout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's lots of comments coming on about how exciting this would be. I don't know if folks have more questions. We do have a little bit more time for questions if we wanted to get into those. But it is really exciting to see that everyone on this presentation is very excited about this. And we really appreciate Victor and Justin, you taking the time and sharing your information and being on. Yeah, go ahead.
If I could jump in for a second, I just wanted to kind of reiterate how incredibly important this partnership has been for ADK Action with Forage, because when we first started talking to each other about this problem, it really felt like there was like short of spending an absurd amount of money to hire someone to do the technical work for us, we didn't feel like we had any way to be able to offer this critical access point for the people we serve. And what they've been able to do in the last year, I don't think that their incredible growth trajectory and like how much they've been able to offer and build out this solution has been highlighted enough in this call yet, because I just want to toot their horns a little bit. I mean, they've gone from, as they said, being on EBT themselves, just stressed out, really, really long hours trying to build this thing, to, you know, they've now got all kinds of amazing partnerships all over the country. They got accepted into the Y Combinator, like the premier startup accelerator, and they're just doing a fabulous job. And we, you know, from our early conversations with Forage, we could never imagine that the seed of work that we are doing together could grow into this, you know, scalable opportunity that I think really can help a lot of community scale food system partners across the country. So.
Great. One thing I do want to briefly go back to, because earlier someone had sort of asked a little about the process. One of the things New York State Health Foundation is really proud and excited to be supporting some of this work. One of our sort of the things that Brittany is also working on in her spare time is technical assistance, right? Sort of documenting the process, documenting their journey, and turning that into a technical assistance tool that will be available for other people to use. So you're doing all the hard work for us, Brittany. I appreciate that. But is there any sort of update on how that's going, and when we'll be able to, when other people will be able to tap into that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and we're hoping to have the SNAP payments online in December or January. There's a few, you know, there's not everything's within our control, but but in our work together, Forage is going to be ready in December. If the governmental approvals all happen in time, should be end of this year or early next, that the hub on the Hill is online accepting SNAP payments live. And so what we've been doing is gathering information from partners across the state who have tried to apply for SNAP online and either failed or decided that they didn't have the access. And so we're putting together we're doing some background research right now, and we're trying to structure our technical assistance tool in a way that will be, you know, really relevant and easy to follow. And, you know, we're trying to also make it just imminent, like very, very clear what the process is, because when we entered in the process, we could only see the next step ahead of us. You know, it was, I don't know how to describe it other than you would look ahead and you'd say, okay, this is the next thing we have to do. You work really hard towards that. And then all of a sudden there's a whole nother huge bureaucratic hoop you have to jump. And we didn't know how long it was going to take. We didn't know what the process would be. We didn't know how much money it was going to cost. We didn't know what kind of expertise we would need on the team. And so all of those unknowns, you know, we want to shine light on those unknowns. So that's what folks can expect from the toolkit that we're putting together. And I expect that we'll have that work finished up sometime around March or April of next year. The other thing that I want to be mindful of is that partners at USDA are working really hard on this. They're trying to improve the online pilot. They are, you know, taking feedback and they're making adjustments. And we've already seen since beginning this project, multiple minor changes in the way that they communicate about the process. And so we also want to be careful to have something that's timely and relevant, and we want to be sure we're completely up to date. So, so it's kind of an interesting thing where the USDA is updating it as we're trying to tell folks what to expect from the USDA. But we hope that it'll be really helpful. And I also know that the National Grocers Association is doing a toolkit or some kind of guide for independent grocers as well. And maybe that's something that Justin or Victor wants to speak to.
Yeah, so we just got off the call with the NGA right before this panel, and they do have a toolkit that they're working on. And obviously, as Brittany mentioned, it changes. And so the learnings that both Brittany and ADK and me and Victor have, you know, will be top of mind. And this is our full-time jobs of making sure that you guys are fully aware of those changes. And so, I think as these adjustments come along, as a partner with New York State, you guys will be the forefront of those changes.
Thank you. Well, that's exciting to hear. I think so. Someone also asked a question, sort of the $100,000 question, no pun intended, but Brittany, what kind of funding have you been able to secure to sustain the work? I know we are supporting you. Someone else heard you speak on another panel about CDPHP, one of the payers who in New York State, who are supporting this work as well. So maybe you can speak a little bit about that. But also, my tag on question is how obviously this is a very time consuming process, but in terms of dollars, like how cost prohibitive is this in terms of application fees and other hoops that you have to jump through?
We haven't run into any real application fees so far. It's really the development side of things. And as Forage grows, I'd have to defer to you, Victor and Justin, as to what we were very early partners, the first partners really. And so I think that maybe the arrangement that we had for compensating Victor and Justin for their work is quite different than what it might look like for other partners down the line. So I can't speak to that directly. But I can tell you that a lot of our funding at ADK Action for this has come from New York State Health Foundation and from our members. We're a membership supported nonprofit. And so a lot of the staff time and just human capacity on this project has been supported by our membership and individual donors. I think that there was a recent federal grant opportunity through the USDA for SNAP Online funding, and as far as I don't know if the winners have been announced, but that was for nonprofit partners to help expand SNAP Online. That was a little over our heads at ADK Action, just because we're a small regional nonprofit, and we don't tend to work with the federal government for funding because we don't have the staff capacity for those types of grants and the reporting. But I would say, really we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for New York State Health Foundation. So that's really been our main source of support on this, and we're really grateful for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in. Victor, Justin, I don't know if you have any sort of closing remarks that you want to share with the audience, final bits of knowledge.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to, well, for me personally, I'd like to reiterate something that I think Brittany mentioned earlier on. And I think for us, like the passion comes from like food access, right? Like the internet was supposed to be the great democratizer. And we really believe that's still the case. I mean, you're starting to see like so many interesting like business models that are like springing up because of the internet, and like their main focus is to increase the distribution of food, and especially healthy foods. And like our goal here at Forage is to bring like dollars into those markets, like give people access to markets that they wouldn't have otherwise given access to because of the limitations of brick and mortar. And so we're very excited and would love to have you all as part of this journey.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And again, a recording of the program and the slides are going to be made available tomorrow and in the next day or two. Obviously, Justin and Victor have shared their contact information, so don't be shy. They would love to hear from you. And one final note from us: next week, I'm going to make a plug for a different conference that we're hosting next week on November 2nd and 3rd. It's a virtual conference on veteran suicide prevention, which is another one of New York State Health Foundation's priority areas. So to learn more about that and register, you can go onto our website. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining. I want to thank the panelists, and I hope you all have a great day. Stay safe and stay dry. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.